Sally was newly married at the start of the Great Depression. She and her husband decided they couldn't afford to start a family yet, but abortion was illegal in New York City, and so she traveled to Puerto Rico to get an illegal abortion. Dorothy had just recently graduated high school when she became pregnant by a much older golf instructor. Her conservative parents had shunned her, and she had to stay at a Salvation Army home for unwed mothers, where she gave birth and placed the child up for adoption. These women were my grandmothers, and part of the reason I became a demographer and professor studying the causes and consequences of unintended pregnancy. I was 13 in 2022 when the Supreme Court Justice overturned Roe v. Wade. As a young girl coming to age in the United States, I deserve to have access to the same rights that my grandmothers had. A TED Talk given in 2023 titled, "What Happens When We Deny People Abortions" by Diana Green Foster explains what happens when we deny female healthcare access. I want my body to have my choice. For years, people have alleged that abortion causes mental health harm. The idea that abortion causes mental health harm in particular has been used to justify laws that ban or try and dissuade people from choosing it. This came to a head in 2007 when Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy allowed restrictions on abortions to stand. Because as he said, while we find no reliable data to measure the phenomenon, it is unexceptionable to conclude that some women don't come to regret their choice to abort the infant life they once created and sustained. Severe depression and loss of esteem can follow. No reliable data. Those are words a demographer lives for. We began data collection the very next year. In analyzing the data, we see that women who received and women who were denied the abortion had similar mental health, physical health, and socioeconomic well-being at the time they sought an abortion. My research team at the University of California went to 30 abortion facilities across the country, each one distant enough from each other in case somebody showed up a little too far along in pregnancy and were turned away. I called it the Turnaway Study, and the study design was a success. We followed almost 1,000 women, calling them every 6 months for 5 years, asking them scientifically validated questions to measure their mental health, physical health, and socioeconomic well-being. And we can see that although the two groups started the same, their lives diverged in other important ways that could be directly attributed to whether they got the abortion or did not. And it did not work out the way that Kennedy had unexceptionally concluded. In fact, we found no mental health harm from abortion. Instead, we saw higher anxiety, lower self-esteem, and lower life satisfaction for those who were denied the abortion. But this difference did not last. Over time, we see that the two groups started to look the same, not because both groups are doing poorly in terms of mental health. In fact, symptoms of depression and anxiety improved over time for both groups. But the two groups' lives diverged in other important ways. We find worse physical health for women who were denied the abortion and carried the pregnancy to term, consistent with the vast medical literature that is associated with childbirth's greater risk than abortion, including hemorrhage, eclampsia, and even death. But the differences in physical health do not end at the time of childbirth. We find women have more hypertension and higher chronic pain who were denied the abortion. We also find a large socioeconomic difference, where women who were denied the abortion face more hardships than women who received the abortion. Working with economists, I was able to show that women who received and women who were denied the abortion had similar economic beings at the time they sought an abortion. But for those years after the abortion, we see that women who were denied the abortion had more debt, lower credit scores, and a greater chance of eviction and bankruptcy for those who were denied. Since the 2022 Supreme Court Dobbs decision that overturned Roe and ended federal protections for abortion rights in our country, people are determined. Over the 5 years we followed those women, we find that over 95% of those who received the abortion said it was the right decision for them. Very few of those who gave birth placed the child up for adoption. less than 10%. So there is another example of a Supreme Court justice making an assumption that turned out to be wrong. You may remember Amy Coney Barrett, on deliberating ending 50 years of abortion rights in our country, suggested that women could drop their babies off at fire stations. But we find that once people have made the monumental sacrifice of giving birth, most people decide to parent that child. Adoption is not an easy choice. As the abortion provider, Dr. George Tiller used to say before his murder back in 2009, trust women. Access to safe legal abortion is important for all of us. Unintended pregnancy is common in my family, in all of our families, across our globe, in red states and blue states, and across our country. Access to safe legal abortion is universally and fundamentally important for the well-being of families. The overwhelming international trend is towards liberalizing abortion laws, unlike the United States of imposing new ones. Until the United States decides to rejoin the rest of the world, there is a lot that we can do to support pregnant people, whether they do or do not want to carry that pregnancy to term. We need much more generous and less punitive supports for low-income families, like income support, extended periods of healthcare coverage, childcare, and parental leave, so nobody decides an end an otherwise wanted pregnancy for economic reasons alone. But if somebody's in a position where they decide that they do not want to carry their pregnancy to term, they need the information and resources to do so safely. Since the 2022 Supreme Court's Dobbs decision that overturned Roe and ended federal protections for abortion rights in our country, people who are experiencing an unwanted pregnancy are determined. People have such a strong motivation because they understand the consequences of carrying an unwanted pregnancy to term. The importance of control over childbearing without government interference is seen with the stories of my grandmothers. My father's mother, Sally, got her abortion in Puerto Rico and went on with their life, which including having 3 more wanted children when her financial footing was more secure. She was a wonderful, funny, and loving mother. My other grandmother gave birth, experienced severe complications from childbirth, both physical and emotional. She struggled to find strong romantic relationships, and she never did get to have more children, although she desperately wanted to. What I think about her experience is when her life took a detour as a teenager, she never did find a way to get back on the path that she wanted. The experiences of my grandmothers are consistent with the Turnaway study and show us what to expect in this post-Dobbs world. What we know about being able to make one's own decision without government interference is crucial for the well-being of families and allows people to pursue personal and educational goals, including having more wanted children later on. Access to safe abortion is about one's body, life, and destiny. Thank you.